Hello, my name is William the Avid reader, and today I'm reviewing Imperium, a novel of ancient Rome written by Robert Harris in 2006. So this is the first part of the Cicero trilogy, and it's about the rise of Cicero in ancient Rome. And we get to see this from the perspective of Tero, who is his slave in this book. And an interesting part of this novel is you get to see slavery in ancient Rome, the so-called republic, partial democracy, aristocracy. But you can see that slaves are treated differently by certain masters. So Tiro is treated pretty well by Cicero, for example. There are two parts in this novel. Part 1 is called Senator, and it's from 78 BC to 70 BC. And we get to see the first part of Cicero's rise to power, mostly as a senator. So one time, Cicero goes to Tiro, who is the family slave in Arpinum. Cicero isn't really an aristocrat, but he wants to become a politician or something like that. So he requests that Tiro work for him. They travel to ancient Greece, where Cicero learns rhetoric from the philosophers there. And he is told basically to become a politician of ancient Rome. So he returns to Rome. He is elected senator. He serves as quaestor in Sicily for 1 year, which is a magistrate position one holds 1 year before one becomes officially a senator. Then he returns to Rome and serves as a senator. Soon after he has returned to Rome, a Sicilian comes to visit him and tells him that Governor Verres of Sicily has issued a death penalty on him because there has been pressure on Septimius to do some shady stuff, and Verres has extorted him. So Governor Verres is this corrupt, cruel man of Sicily who has executed plenty of innocent people. He has made backdoor deals with pirates, and he even has killed a Roman citizen. And one important aspect we can see in ancient Rome is you do not kill a Roman citizen without a trial. Now, Sicilians aren't really citizens, but there are some Roman citizens in Sicily. And you cannot kill one without a trial. So the person who was killed arrived from Spain, so there was an assumption that he wasn't a Roman citizen. But once the mistake was revealed, Verres went ahead anyways and executing him. So Septimius wants Cicero to defend him from Verres and also to prosecute Verres. And one of the things interesting with Cicero, he is not only a senator, but he is also a lawyer. So you can see that back in the day, you had other professions than being just a politician. So Cicero brings Verres to trial, who has traveled from Sicily to Rome now, and he is no longer governor there. He's been replaced by another governor. So Cicero goes before the courts. He aligns himself with the more democratic tribunes, since you have the Senate in ancient Rome, but also the tribunes, which are the more democratic part of Rome, while the Senate is more aristocratic. So it's a bit like the United States today, or back in the day how it was originally with the House of Representatives and the Senate. So that's an interesting part of the novel, of course. And Cicero makes a deal with the judge that he will need some time to gather his prosecutorial evidence. So he's given a certain amount of months, and then he travels to Sicily and collects a bunch of evidence. And during his time in Sicily, he found a lot of friends, so he is quite popular there. They are happy that finally someone is going to bring Verres to justice. Cicero goes to Syracuse and finds a bunch of documents about Verres, which proves that he is guilty of executing a Roman citizen. There are a bunch of contradiction with Verres, because he has written that he has executed a pirate when there are witnesses that he didn't do it and freed him, and he has written that he has acquitted the Roman citizen, which he hasn't. There were plenty of witnesses that saw the Roman citizens executed. But then there's some other prosecution that arrives in Rome, which forces Cicero to return, but he has a bunch of evidence. And all his time he's been supported by his wife Terentia, who's aristocratic, and his bellicose soldier-like brother Quintus, along with the more philosophizing Greek type of guy Lucius. So Cicero returns to Rome and prosecutes Varus. And here Cicero displays his ability in rhetoric. Another thing with this book, Cicero makes a lot of speeches, and with these speeches he guarantees the courts or the Senate or all these different bodies to do what he wants, because he knows that if they vote against him, he has the people behind him and a riot may start out. So he uses the power of the people and of different interest groups to get what he wants. And several times these different politicians have to do things that they are reluctant to do. So Varus is convicted and he goes in exile. Previously, Cicero has met with the general Pompey the Great, who has backstabbed him and become consul along with Crassus, I think it was. But because of this special prosecution, Pompey the Great respects now Cicero and brings him back to his side. And it is arranged for Cicero to be elected a dile, because you can see these elections happen often by electoral college. So they're not exactly democratic, but they kind of are, and there are some who have Roman citizenship and some of them I guess can vote. It is very interesting to see this intricate process of these elections, which are in many ways very similar to the United States, just that the United States are much more democratic now, but in the early days of the American Republic, they were very similar to Rome in many ways. So that was part 1, happening between 78 and 70 BC. And now we move on to part 2, Praetorian. And we get to see Cicero climbing the ladder of power more and more. One of the first things that happens is the second part is his cousin Lucius dies. Tiro thinks Lucius committed suicide because Cicero now is maybe being a bit corrupted by these politicians and he's climbing the ladder no matter how. Cicero wants power. Lucius wants him to do it principally. So that may be a reason for Lucius' death. Anyways, Pompey the Great wants greater power, and he does that through the pirates who are coming and kidnapping people. Cicero explains to Pompey that if he wants to get this power, this high position, which kind of makes him a military dictator over some territories, then first one of his acolytes, Gaminius, makes a proposal to the Senate which gives him this power, and the people will support it because people love generals back then. And there's competition with Crassus, but Pompey refuses and leaves. The legislation will have to pass and the Senate will come running back to him eventually. And this strategy works, and eventually Pompey gets his high position of military leader and kind of dictatorial powers in different places. Then we get to see that Claudius wants to prosecute this Catalina, who is a cruel, much crueler version of Verres, and they want to have Cicero as the defense attorney, but they've already bought the courts, so Cicero initially agrees, but then decides no, he will not lie, he will not ruin his reputation and go around with this charade. So Cicero is turning more and more people against him. He turned Crassus against him, for example, initially when that general returned to Rome and wanted him to support him in getting a triumph, and Cicero refused. So Cicero has some principles actually, and he sticks to them. They're not as strong as Lucius wants them to be, but he still has them. And he doesn't really like the aristocrats, Cicero. He takes the young Callius under his apprenticeship, and then Caelius moves on to working for Crassus. Cicero learns from Caelius, who hates Crassus because Cicero was a laissez-faire teacher while Crassus is mean and doesn't let Caelius participate. So Caelius goes to Cicero. He reveals the plot that Crassus has bribed a lot of people to get Catalinia and Hybrida be elected as consuls, and they want to do this land reform to increase the powers of Crassus and his cronies, because Crassus is basically the richest man in Rome. So, to prevent this, Cicero considers, and his wife Terentia suggests him to go see the aristocrats. But how does he do this? Well, Caelius arranged that Tiro, who has this special writing way, he can record a lot of information by writing it down quickly with these symbols when people are talking, and he's been constantly doing it throughout the story. He arranges for Tiro to go and listen in on Crassus discussing these different things with Caesar and the others, and how to take over Rome and get more land and things like that. And then this information is passed on to Hortensius, an aristocrat. Now, Cicero's relationship with the aristocrats has been bad, since he's kind of been a populistic figure, Cicero. But now, he sees the opportunity and seizes it and goes and sees Hortensius after he has passed this information along to him. And the aristocrats have called upon him and they discuss with him, and they make a deal that they're gonna back him as consul instead of Hybrida in Catalinia. And they back him, this so-called new man that they didn't really trust. And they did this because Tiro has evidence of this conspiracy. So the election comes along, and Cicero wins with a landslide and becomes the consul, or Imperium, something like that. One of the highest positions in Rome, maybe the highest position in ancient Rome. And that's how the story ends, with Tiro being reminded why Lucius committed suicide. But now Cicero has a lot of power, and he'll be sure to use it in the next novels, I expect. So, how would I rate Imperium by Robert Harris? I would say a 9 out of 10. I've read a couple other books by Robert Harris. The one called The Higher Form of Killing, his non-fiction on chemical and biological weapons one. And then I also read his first novel called Fatherland. Now, Fatherland was a great book. So is this one. It's a better book, so it's a 9 out of 10. And it's a stronger 9 out of 10 than Fatherland. It has a lot better pacing than Fatherland. And you get to learn about the politics of Rome, the structure, and you can look back as a fan of the United States and see how it's quite similar, the American system, to ancient Rome. You can see the issues with slavery, the power politics, how Cicero has to keep switching sides, but also hold on to some of his principles. And you see some characters die, but they're not willy-nilly, but when they die it's actually interesting. So you can feel it, you can see this rise to power, and actually how to become a politician. If you want to become a politician, this would actually be a pretty good book to learn, because you get to understand rhetoric and things like that. So yeah, it's a great book. So 9 out of 10. You should definitely read Imperium if you like history. So this was the Avid Reader's Review of Imperium, written by Robert Harris in 2006. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys next time.